So there were little notes if you like to take notes that we passed out at the door. If not, I don't know if Barry, was there any extras that you have? If anyone, nope, we out of them? Okay, well, Owen has an extra one.
Yes.
Yep, if anyone who needs it, there's an extra one here. There's an extra.
I've got an extra one.
As part of our services at the end, we have a time where you write down the one thing that maybe God spoke to you or a question you have after the sermon. So just be prepared for that. And then we do share it with people in the congregation. So we'll be doing that at the end, just with pairing up and doing that. So just want to give warning for that. It's just a way to continue to learn and grow as we listen to God's word and see what he has to say for us. And so we are looking at a series on the patterns of Jesus. What are some of the things he did? What are the things that he taught that might help us to grow in our walk with God and our understanding of who God is? And so we have the spiritual disciplines is what they are known for. I know discipline isn't always a fun word to think about, but they are disciplines because they require effort and they require us to plan. And so the reason we do spiritual disciplines, some of these are repeats for other weeks. I did add one more to the bottom, but they help us to go deeper in our walk with God. They help us face life the way God intended. They help us to hunger and thirst after God. And they open us up to God's help and influence in our lives. And so the spiritual disciplines, there's about deepening our walk with God, not letting it be just a surface level, but going deeper. And so today we are talking about simplicity. Who here sometimes wish their life was a bit simpler? Yep, most of us. Some of us maybe wish we had a bit more excitement, but for most people, simple. We like things to be a little more simple. We get things too out of whack, too complex, too many things on, and we need to simplify. So simplicity is, for most of us, something that we think, oh, that sounds good. Ecclesiastes 7:29 says, "This only I have found, God created man upright," so he created us upright, "but they have gone in search of many schemes." We are the ones that make ourselves busy. We are the ones that have so much going on that it pulls us away from the way God created us to be. So when we talk about simplicity, there are two kind of areas, and we're mainly going to talk about the simplicity of possessions and a bit more of simplicity of time, about how we deal with our time next week. So if you're around next week, how do we slow down? How do we have a bit more simple time? So today we're talking specifically about the simplicity of our possessions. And so Richard Foster said, "Simplicity is an inward reality that results in an outward lifestyle. Both are necessary." I'm going to read that again. So simplicity is an inward reality that results in an outward lifestyle. So for us to have the simplicity that the Bible talks about, we need to have both those. The simplicity on the inside and then that lifestyle that lives it out in the outward way. In our passage today, we have Jesus. He's out teaching, and somebody asks him this question. He has apparently a brother who is not willing to share their inheritance, and he's wanting some of that inheritance. And so there's this dilemma, and he wants Jesus to use his influence to convince his brother to give him some money or land or donkeys or something, right? And he wants some of that. And so this is how Jesus replies. Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? And he said, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. This idea that greed can creep in. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Who here feels like they have an abundance of possessions? I think that's most of us. Most of us in the Western world, we feel like we have an abundance of possessions. But life does not consist, that's not what makes our life important, is our possessions. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. Must have been a good farmer, right? He planted. It's been a good year, probably lots of rain. And he has a big harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. As soon as you have a barn, as soon as you have a shed, what's the first thing you wish? That it was bigger, yes. And so he's decided, I'm going to tear down my barns. Whenever we were getting ready to build a shed on our property, I think it was Barry, but one of the farmers said that think about as big as you could ever imagine needing and then increase it by 50%, all right? So he's decided to build these bigger barns. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. So as we read through the story, from an outward perspective, I might start thinking, oh, this guy is actually kind of wise, all right? He's got this grain, he doesn't want it to waste, so he's building bigger barns so he can store it. He's planning for his retirement, right? He's putting it in the barns, and he can just eat, drink, and be merry like all you retirees, right? Is that what you do? And so it sounds to me like he's planner, he's doing well. But then the story continues. And then I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool. A little bit different than what I think when I first read it. You fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. So as we think about that, as I said, he, from the output, kind of sounds wise, getting those bigger barns. You know, he's preparing for his retirement. But there's more to it. In the story we see, there's more to what Jesus is trying to say. Because obviously, he's doing those things, and Jesus is not saying that those things are bad. But this man has devoted everything to just those things. And that's where he went wrong. He was not prepared for the next life. He was prepared for this life, but he was not preparing himself for the next life. And the warning that Jesus said here at the end, this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. They're a fool. He's missed out. He doesn't know God. He's not serving God. All he's thinking about is being rich and having a good life with what he has. His priorities are wrong. And if we follow that example, then we are a fool. Again, you can have possessions, but if you're not rich towards God, then you are missing out. Matthew 6 has some things to say about this. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and vermin do not steal, or do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And it continues in 24, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Very clear in Jesus' teaching that we have only one master, and he is calling us to make God our master, to follow after him. And money can be used, possessions can be used for lots of things, but once they become our priority, then we are serving two ways. We let greed step in, and greed is combating against living a life of simplicity. It's combating against a life living in contentment in what we have. So Proverbs 28:25 says, a greedy man stirs up strife, but the one who trusts in the Lord will be enriched. 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. I don't know, every time we see this, we say it's not, money isn't, but it's the love of money. When we love money, and that's our aim and goal is to get as much of it as we can, then that's where we go wrong. Hebrews 13:5, keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. This is hinting at this idea of being satisfied in God and who he is. I just want to be clear here. None of this is saying we shouldn't be hard workers. None of this is saying it's wrong to earn an income or get paid for the work we do. All of this is our perspective and how we see it and how it is controlling our lives. Ecclesiastes 5:10, he who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. This idea that we can't just be content with one or two things. We always want more. And so once we begin working for our possessions, they are the ones controlling us. So if we are working strictly to get more possessions, and that's our aim and effort, then they are starting to control us. If we're working to do our best, to work well, as God tells us to, if we're working to provide for our families, we're working so that we can be generous with the things that he's given us, then they're not controlling us. But as soon as it's all about getting that next thing, you know, the newest iPhone, the newest car, the newest, all these sorts of things. As soon as we get controlled by those things, then it keeps us from living the way we should with God and having a right perspective towards what God has given us. And this is a quote from John Mark Comer. We talked about him a little bit last week. He wrote a book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. If you've not read it, I think it is a very compelling book to change our lifestyles so that our lifestyles don't control us and keep us from living the way God intended. And so it says, if you are not on board with Jesus' view of money, it could be that you, like many Christians in the West, myself included until quite recently, and with frequent lapses, don't actually believe the gospel of the kingdom. The good news that the life you've always wanted is fully available to you right where you are through Jesus. The gist of that is God's kingdom is saying Jesus is the one that's most important. The kingdom of God is here. It is about living with him in right relationship with him. It's not about having big houses. It's not about having the latest gadgets or the newest cars or the nicest clothes. All these things are just things. They can be nice to have, but once our priorities are those things, and we are missing out on being satisfied in our walk with Jesus. And because of these temptations, there's a number of things that come. Greed is never satisfied. You will always want more. Does anybody know the Pringles little jingle that they have? John's nodding. What do you remember, John?
I'm more interested in these mows.
Oh, yes, Sam's got a good mow there. Anybody? Yep. Is that what you're going to say, Georgia? Yep. Once you pop, you can't stop. That was the slogan with them, and obviously they're popping the lid off. It's kind of become an informal tradition in our family to give each other Pringles in our stockings, right? So Pringles, nice and big, they take up a lot of space. They make the stockings feel really nice and full. And so I got a pack of Pringles in my stocking for Christmas. Yesterday, I decided to pop. Anybody know how many are left? 0. They were good. Once you pop, you can't stop. And that's how greed works. Once you become greedy, you always want more. You never get satisfied with what you have. Once you get something, it doesn't take long. Sometimes with technology, it's only in a matter of months. It becomes old, dated. There's a new model, a new technology that's out there. Every year they make new cars, right? So as soon as you buy a new car, the next year later, it's old stuff. It's not new anymore. And so our greed is never satisfied. And that is what the marketing tries to take advantage of, right? If you have watched any commercials at all, what are they trying to get you to see? Your life would be so much better if you owned this, if you drank this, if you ate this, life would be better. But we are never going to be satisfied with things. It'll always leave us lacking and wanting more. Second thing that the temptation of greed has us looking to possessions to complete us or to make us happy. This is another quote from John Mark Comer. Did I put it in? No. I'll just read it. It says, I guess I read it earlier. If you're not on board with Jesus' view of money, but it says the good news that the life you've always wanted is fully available to you right where you are through Jesus. Jesus is the one that can complete us, make us happy. None of our possessions can do it. They might bring a fleeting happiness and joy when you first get it, but it's quickly fading. Who here was very excited about all their Christmas presents? Yeah, I got some good ones, right? But that fades, right? It fades. We're already moved on. Who here already has something else that they want that you didn't get at Christmas, right? There's always next Christmas. But our possessions, if we're looking for our possessions to complete us or make us happy, then that's greed. We're wanting something that those things cannot give us. The third thing that greed does, it distracts us from finding satisfaction and completeness in Jesus. A simple life, this is my quote, a simple life is not a life without possessions or with little, but one in which we have our priorities and perspectives right. A simple life is not a life without possessions or with little, but one in which we have our priorities and perspectives right. And there are a number of groups and things that because of greed, they choose to try to have less. Right? I've recently been studying some about the monks of the Middle Ages, and they gave up everything. All they really had was their cloak and a staff, walking staff, and that's all that they had. They gave up all their possessions so they could fully focus on living for God. So am I saying that you should do that? Sure, if you want. But that's not what is required. There's another movement. It's a modern movement that's come about minimalism. Anybody follow that movement at all, about just kind of to get rid of things and declutter your life and simplify your life? And there are some Christians that follow it, but it's not something that's strictly only to Christians. It's just about getting rid of all the things. And you've probably heard of little house movement, where people buy little houses and recognizing that they don't need a bunch of items to make them happy. And these movements, there's nothing wrong with these movements. I would say probably most of us would simplify our lives if we got rid of some of the things that we have, some of our possessions. But it's not necessarily about just getting rid of things. It's about changing our priorities and our perspectives when it comes to our possessions, the things that we have.
He just whispered in my ear, trying to let me take myself.
I think he did it on purpose. So Richard Foster gives us 3 things, but I think it's very helpful, this quote. It says, if what we have, we can receive as a gift from God. So all your possessions, if we see those things as a gift from God, and if what we have, we know to be cared by God, so it's not causing us worry. I bought that new car, and if I park it in the parking lot, someone's going to ding it with the door, and it's causing us worry. If we say, okay, God's going to care for the things that he gives us. And if what we have can be available to others, when it is clearly right and good, then we are living in an inward reality of simplicity. So again, it's not about getting rid of all your possessions. It's about our perspective. Are we receiving them as a gift from God, recognizing that all that we have comes from God? Are we knowing that he's the one that cares for the things that he gives us? And are we willing to share those when there are others who have need? And those are the 3 things that Richard Foster is saying promote simplicity in our lives. But if we feel that if what we have, we feel that we alone have gotten, so I've earned this is mine. And if what we have, we believe is up to us to hold on to, we don't want anyone else to get it or have it. And if what we have, we cannot make available to others, then it is clear, when it is clearly right and good, that we are living in duplicity. This idea of trying to serve 2 masters, both God and money. So how do we have a life of simplicity when it comes to possessions? The first thing we need to do is recognize that we need to seek God first. Before we seek possessions, before we seek anything else, we seek him first. And it puts the things that we have in perspective. Matthew 6:33 says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. This is a little bit later in the passage where it's telling us to store up treasures in heaven, not on earth. And this is talking about worry, who can buy, who can add anything to his life by worrying for the things. But we are called to seek God first. Second thing is we can change our mindset. So who we are is far more important than what one possesses. As soon as we get our worth or our identity from what we have, such as our house, our car, our clothes, we have our priorities out of order, and we are going down the path of trying to serve 2 masters. So who we are is more important than what we possess. Anybody here ever bought something new or thought that was really cool, and I can't wait for people to see me driving this, having this? Just me and John, it looks like. Yes, okay, I've got another honest person over here. We begin to get our identity in our possessions, what we have. And that's wrong. That's letting our possessions control us. And we need to change our mindset that who we are, who God created us to be, how we can live for him is more important than what we possess. The third thing to have simplicity of possessions is we need to trust in God's provision. And Matthew 6 is telling us not to worry. It tells us if he cares for the birds, if he cares for the flowers, how much more will he care for us? We need to trust in God, not in our possessions. So in conclusion, as we think about our lives, are there things that we could get rid of that would simplify our lives and make it easier to focus on seeking God first? All right, so that can be the first part. Are there things that are taking up our time, our thoughts, our efforts, and are distracting us from following God? The more possessions we have, the more things we have to take care of and clean, and they can be a distraction, right? So are there things we could get rid of just to simplify? That's just a very practical thing. And then the second part, the more important part, what mindset do we need to change to have a focus on heavenly things instead of earthly things? What mindset? Are we still getting our worth from the things we have? Are we getting our identity in that, or are we getting it from God? Are our possessions for our enjoyment and helping us live a life honoring God, or are they pulling us down because of our mindset, what we're thinking? So in the midst of Nazi terror, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a Jew, said, "To be simple is to fix one's eyes solely on the simple truth of God at a time when all concepts are being confused, distorted, and turned upside down." Obviously, at the time that he was doing this, the world was getting turned upside down by not by Nazi Germany. But our world is still getting turned upside down. It's trying to pull us away from focusing on God, of living for God. And we need to fix our eyes on the simple truth of God, of who He is, what He's promised us. And one day, this life will be over. We're not taking any possessions with us. Right? No cars, no houses, no clothes, maybe an iPhone. No iPhone. We're taking none of that with us. All we're taking is what we earn in a relationship, or the treasures we've stored in heaven by living for God, of caring for others, loving others. Our church mission is to know Jesus and share His love. To know Jesus and share His love. And that's our mission as a church. But is that our mission in our life? Are my priorities to do those two things? And my possessions and the things God has blessed me with are to help me do those things. To help me love others, care for others. If God's blessed you, well, invite others into that blessing. If God's given you spare income, well, man, there's people all around the world who need help. And we can support. And I know we can't help all people in all places, and all of us could give all our money away and it'd just be a drop in the bucket. But what are our priorities? Are we willing to help those around us? And so as we finish, are we going to pattern our life after the way the world tells us we should live? Always needing more, always wanting more, earn more so you can buy more? Are we going to pattern our life after the way Jesus taught us and adopt a life of simplicity, of not letting our possessions own us, but we own our possessions for the glory of God? Don't let greed creep in and cause us to be pulled away from God. Now going to come to our time of one thing. So it's just a time for you to think about what's the one thing you've learned, one question you have, one thing maybe to change, one thing you were challenged about, or one thing that God spoke to you. So when I preach, I don't want to speak to you. I want God to speak to you. Right? I can say all kinds of things. Obviously, I read from God's word, and that's His word to you. But I want you to hear from God, not from me. So we're going to take 1 minute. So, Archer, if you want to